we're here, and today we are talking about the G Center in human design. Jen will be joining me live, and we are going to be chatting all about how your G Center actually impacts your energetic blueprint and how you not only show up in the world as a human being, but how you can utilize this in your business as well. And that's what's so amazing about having this business, having the human design in your business, because it allows you just to express in a way that feels really good and allows you to gain clients. So if you're new here, I'm Ms. Straw. I'm a human design and business expert.
Everyone, I am Jen Greiner of Divine Vitality, and I am a human design coach, energetic alignment coach, and also a therapist. So I help individuals align through human design, decondition to heal all of the wounds, make confident decision making, better relationships, better boundaries, really all the personal internal pieces. So I just love human design, going through all of these centers. I think this series is so fun. I mean, obviously we're doing it for our second round again. So I feel like too, with what I just said, really is about my defined G center that we're going to talk about today.
That's right. Yeah. And so if you are curious about human design, you're definitely in the right place. We go live, usually Mondays at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And today's topic is all about the G Center. And if you grab your chart out, you're going to look, it's the fourth one down. It's a diamond shape. And this is said to be where your soul resides, like who you are, what you came here to do and be and have. And so we're going to be talking about this center in particular and whether you have it defined or undefined. Now, Jen, mine is undefined. How about yours?
Yeah, so mine's defined with majority of love gates. So in the G center, in that diamond, half of the gates are all about direction, knowing where you need to be going. And the other half of the gates are all about love, different types of love. And because I have 8 out of 10 love gates, there are 10 love gates in our entirety of our design. But because I have so many love gates, I love talking about all the different facets of love. So that's one aspect that I really, really like about this center. And it's also said to be the monopole, right? Everything, when you look at kind of how it's placed in the body graph, it's really in the middle, in the center. So all of our energy is really coming here. This is a lot of the energy that we share between one another. So it's, of course, they're all powerful, but this one is so much of who we are and what moves through us.
Yes, yes. And I think one of the things, with the G Center, whether it's defined or undefined, is that sometimes we can struggle with our self-identity, and sometimes we can struggle with like what our purpose is and even just love, right? Depending on how we've been conditioned in our youth will kind of determine how we feel about ourselves. And so someone like myself who has this undefined center, I really take in a lot of energy from other people around me. And so I was always looking outside myself for answers. And that was really hard because I almost had this duality. I had this duality of knowing who I was, knowing what I wanted, and being in that purpose. And then this other duality of when people would tell me that's too big, that's you think too far out, like that's impossible. Then I would have this like, oh, well, then everything that I stand for, my purpose and everything, it's not right or it's not correct in society's views. And so suddenly I would sort of lose that sense of purpose and identity and go back into following what other people, so giving my power away essentially. And that was a really big struggle for me. And so finding out that I had this undefined center made me kind of go like, oh, awesome. Now I get to work on this and start getting rid of limiting beliefs and conditioning that has happened over the years. And that has been super empowering in my human design journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That undefined G center, the motto there. So when you look at this diamond, if it's white, that means it's undefined. And the motto really is where you are is who you are. You're very much like a chameleon. And if you're not mindful of the conditioning of what everyone around you, society, family, friends is telling you who you should be, the direction you should go, who you should love, you can easily get wrapped up in that, get conditioned, and really move so far from who you truly are. So that's why this center is so important, especially if it's undefined, to be mindful of that conditioning, because you want to be you, right? You don't want to be who everyone else thinks you should be. You kind of can lose that sense of authenticity, or it can be really, really challenging to step into your power to really be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so drop in the comments if you're listening live. I know when it's replay, if you drop in the comments, then the live restarts. So you don't necessarily want to do that now, but if you're live watching us, drop in the comments. Are you defined or undefined? Because that's going to help you understand sort of what would be some good steps forward for you to, decondition this area and really fully step into the direction of your path versus somebody else's. And I think one other thing, especially as coaches, right now, I know Jen, you work more with people in sort of a life coaching versus creating a business, but you know, in yourself, right? As coaches, we need this passion, right? We're passionate about helping others and transforming, and we need to have access to our deepest drive, right? That's a non-negotiable, and that's so important for us, and that's where that sits, right? And so, in my personal self as I was stepping into business, learning to receive clients, receive money, and know that what I was giving them was creating transformation. I had to really dive deep into my purpose and like, what am I actually here for? What am I actually meant to change? And that my business has pivoted and shifted over the years simply because when I started, I wasn't tuned into my self-identity and what I wanted to create. And so it's been a beautiful process, frustrating, but beautiful process over the last couple of years, watching myself really step into the power of having this undefined G center and owning it. Because a big part of this too is that I get to now use this center as I decondition, use this center to really lean into my passion and my purpose and shape the direction of where my brand is going now. And the more and more I step into that power, the more and more my purpose comes into light.
Yes, yes. And especially if you have any of your gates in your incarnation cross, those four gates, if any of them are in your G center, like it's really, really important to tap into this. And to talk about my defined G center, especially when it comes to business, just because mine is defined, meaning that I have fixed, reliable access to the energy of who I am, right? This center really answers the question of who am I? I've always been able to answer that question. I've always kind of been known where I've been drawn to, who I am. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't conditioned. And especially when it came to business, all these different coaches that were giving me the cookie cutter approach. If you do this, you will be successful. And especially as a projector, I want to be successful, right? That's my self theme, my signature, but where I will be drawn to when I'm blind. And it never worked. And it got really frustrating. I got bitter. I got, even more conditioning of like, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be successful in business? I should do this. I'm on this right direction. And even still now, I'm picking apart these little pieces of conditioning. I like to think now more they're in the mind, right? It's that mental conditioning rather than at my core, my soul really knows what it is here to do, that purpose. Um, but not to say that it's not conditioned. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about that.
Well, and I think that sometimes it's easy to think like, oh, my center's defined, that's better, right? And so, as we're here talking about one specific center in human design, I want to make sure, and I know Jen will agree with this, we want to make sure that you understand that it's more complex than this is one center, right? This one center is very powerful because of it, of its, that holds our purpose and our self-worth and our values and all that sort of thing as we want to put out into the world. But the conditioning that we receive and what our G center is connected to will affect each of us differently, right? And again, whether it's defined or undefined, isn't worse or better. It's just giving you the information so that you know how to be with this kind of center and where you might look or how you might start taking steps to decondition so that, right, you can step into your fullest power and just be authentically you and follow all of those amazing, beautiful passions that you are so deeply desiring to bring to the world.
Yeah, I think in a way, having a defined G center is a little more simple when it comes to living it out. It's a little easier to look at it, to tap into that reliable energy and utilize it. That's why I
Mhm.
feel like I kind of stopped in what I was saying because there's really not much more to say there. I think there is so much to say about the undefined G center, about really looking at the gates that are defined, that are colored in, that are hanging there to really know that that is part of you. That is your reliable energy to come back to, right? When we look at human design from a personality standpoint, those are your personality traits. That is what you possess, you bring to the world. So to really look at those and honor them. And I don't know if we want to go a level deeper here, but with all of the hanging gates, right? When you're undefined, all the gates you have active are just hanging there. They're longing, they're looking for that other end, for opposites to attract. So you might find that you're with other people who do bring you a sense of identity, that it's a lot easier to be yourself with them. And that is so
Mhm.
special when it comes to alignment and making sure that you're feeling in your self theme, watching out for your not self theme. um, but there's just so much to the undefined G center to really tap into the beauty and the uniqueness of it. I was actually looking back on a testimonial from a client a while ago, and she said, "I used to think of undefined centers as a weakness, and now I know that it is not a weakness. It's just a different type of power. It's what makes me unique, and how to really honor that and tap into that." And Ms. Rawl, I don't know if you want to say more to that in terms of business too, because in this new paradigm business that we're moving into, where authenticity is so important, this center is really important when it comes to being a solopreneur.
Yeah, for sure. And, with this undefined G center, I think, when I first learned, I was like jealous, right? I was like, no, I want it to be defined. That's so hard. But then because to me, it felt like, oh, then I don't have a sense of purpose or a sense of belonging, which isn't true, right? It's just a different way the energy flows through and how you sort of tap into it. But I think one of the things when I started looking at human design from a marketing perspective, because as somebody who is in business, one of the things for me, being a manifesting generator, having this open G center, having my crown and mind open as well, I was taking a lot of advice, like you had said before, from other people and be like, well, they have X amount of dollars that they're receiving or this really big, massive business. I have to learn from them. They're the leaders in the industry, whatever, whatever. But what I found is that those cookie cutter strategies that you were talking about just didn't work. When I have an undefined G center, it actually requires me to be more experiential in finding my messaging that resonates not only with me, obviously, but with my clients, right? Or potential clients coming in. And so when I started to realize that, like, oh, I get to experiment. I don't have to stay in this sort of construct of like, you have to do a post that nurtures, you have to do a post that sells, you have to do, I got to just have that permission to just do it in a way that felt really good for me. And when I started to experiment with that, all of a sudden, people would pop into my DMs from a post about something that I said that really resonated with them that they wanted to gravitate towards. And then, of course, the next step is that they want to end up working with you, right? And so it takes time to figure out that messaging and it takes time to experiment with it as well. But it gave me a sense of freedom that I didn't have before because I was trying to stay in the lane of what I was being taught to do. And really in life, we can go this way and this way and this way and this way and upside down and turn around. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. And I think one of the special things about having the undefined G center for me is that I leverage other people's input to support me in going into the right direction for my brand. And what I mean by that is that with my G center, I sort of, because I'm feeling in and experimenting with messaging and trying to find what actually will attract my clients and resonate with them, what happens is I have business buddies like you who we talk about, and just by speaking my purpose or my passion out loud, it allows me to hear it back. And that's been really important for me, is having those people that I feel very comfortable being myself around, who I can connect, engage, and have conversations with, that then allow me to feel empowered in that purpose to show up here and re-give that energy back out to my following.
Yeah, that's really how the G center works, especially when we look at it as an authority, right? With all of this, you really want to come back to your own strategy and authority, your strategy based on your energy type, and then your authority where you make decisions, how you make aligned decisions. So with the G center, it's all about voice. It's all about sharing. It is self-projected. You really need to put it out there to hear how it sounds. It's all about the voice and the vibration and how you say it. Will guide you. Another one of my biz besties is a self-projected projector, and she really just needs it. It's different from mental projectors in the sounding board. It's who need to soundboard. It's more of she just needs to put it out there and have the space. And through her voice, she quickly learns and hears what will guide her. So even if you are not a self-projected authority, you still have a G center. And if your G center is defined, self project, utilize that power. And if your G center is undefined, just like you said, Mistral, finding people that likely do define your G center, whether they have a defined G center that you absorb or together you make that definition, that's what you're doing. And it's so powerful. While it's not your top authority, right? Authorities work on a hierarchy. You want to use yours for big decisions. We can use our G center to self project to really guide us through all the little things. And especially in business, it's so helpful to just hop on Voxer and be like, blah, blah, this is what I'm thinking. I'm not really sure, but okay, I answered my own question. Like those are many of the Voxer messages that happen in my inbox.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I hear you on that. And how beautiful, right? That to be for people to be able to have that ability to, and that's why it's so important, right? If you're somebody who's in business and you're struggling or you're stuck, like find a coach, because having a coach just allows you that space to A, feel supported, B, hear yourself speak or be reflected back onto, or C, give you guidance that really is going to help you grow to your next level. And just being surrounded, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm always in kind of containers or surrounding myself with like-minded people, because that does fuel my G center to then continue with my passion and understand that I'm on the right path and that everything that I'm doing is correct, and that I have permission to experiment, right, with the undefined G center, which is huge because as a manifesting generator, I like that too.
Yeah, absolutely. With that undefined G center, like you got to bring the energy through. You got to see what moves you, especially if you have any type of split definition, right? Other people or that energy might bridge that to really help you flow. And especially because it's in the middle, activating that can really bridge the top and bottom, right? Your head and your body, or help you be more grounded and make aligned decisions. So it's not called the monopole for no reason.
So true. And I will say I tap into this center every morning. It's a part of my like morning routine, essentially. Now, I know not everyone has a morning routine or chooses to not have one. That's fine. But there's certain times of the day when I do tap back into my G center, because that's also for me a big part of manifestation, right? Where I kind of feel that love. And so I could associate it probably with the ego too, but I can feel that love and the vibration sort of fueling my purpose and getting excited about it. And that's when I know that, like, oh, that's that feeling of excitement. That's that feeling of the satisfaction in getting something done and continually moving towards my best self. And so I think that's really huge too, is to tap into this space, whether it's defined or undefined daily, because it's your soul. It's how you connect with your higher self. It's how you can really make sure you're in alignment with what you're here to do and what you desire to do.
Yeah, so beautifully said. With the G center being our sense of direction, our sense of purpose, when we really tap into that, it can help guide us, right? It's yes, our authority, but the G center has that, other awareness. It's not technically an awareness center, but it still brings everything together and will guide you. So, I love utilizing that as part of a morning practice, connecting your soul, connecting to the truth of who you are, especially when you're in your own space, right? As a projector, I was just with a Manny Jen for a whole week in my space. It was really hard to like connect to my own energy. But now that I have it back to be in my own environment, to feel just myself and just my energy and tap into this space. If you're confused or looking for guidance, this is one way to do it. And I know we attract so many Jens here, so
We
welcome.
do. Hi, Sophia.
To utilize that, right? What works for Mistral as a Manny Gen certainly can work for other Manny Gens too.
Yeah, definitely. We're all different. We all have different centers connected and things like that. But there are ways that we get to, you can just relate on that energy level, which is huge.
Yes.
Transformational travel, she said, "Oh my God, I'd love to be alone." I
Right.
think we all do sometimes, right? We got to refill our cup, and that is so important. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It's finding, society tells us so many things about what we should and shouldn't be. Our parents, everyone. And the human design piece for me was just that permission to do it my way. And I say this probably every live that we're on because I can't help it because it was so transformational for me. But it's a fact that when you understand just these little pieces, even if it's just knowing that the G center, oh, that's my purpose, knowing you can tap into that to like reconnect with your purpose, to ask a question about your purpose, to figure out if there's been conditioning around your purpose or that you have maybe limiting beliefs around I can't make money doing that, or that's just play, that's passion, that's not a real job, right? It's learning to say, well, actually, I wasn't put here just to like dream about this stuff. I was put here to activate and bring this stuff to the world. So yeah, I have to tap into it. And yeah, I have to, not have to, desire to. And following through with that, and understanding that and being willing to do the work to let all those things go.
Right. And when we look at human design as the science of differentiation, right? Human design tells us, shows us how we are all uniquely different. The G center plays a huge role in there. It is the identity center, and every single thing on this planet, living and inanimate, has this G center. It knows what it is. Inanimate objects only have a G center, right? There's no energy movement. It is not alive. When we look at animals, plants, all living things, they have a G center, also another center, letting them know who they are and kind of what they're here to do, bringing that direction. So it's really cool to look at it from that standpoint too, in a way of why this center is so important. And just to tap this back to the chakra system, because some people are so much more familiar with chakras energy
Mm.
centers, this is the heart center in the chakra system. It just split, 400 years ago when projectors came about, and it was that first evolutionary movement. That heart chakra split into the G center and the heart. So if that helps make more sense to anyone, I hope it
Mm.
does.
That actually is a really good thought there, Jen, that you put that in, because I think a lot of people get like they think of human design with the 9 centers and I think of the chakra system with the 7, and they're like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. How do we have more energy centers? So that's a really good point. But it also can share then with you like a little bit about where these, I'm not getting my words right, but where what is your G center connected to? Like, is it connected to your heart? Because then that's really powerful. I mean, any connection is really powerful, but that could be really powerful with those two chakra systems almost like merging back together or having energy flow between the two. Because our soul and then, of course, our heart and our ego have very different energies. And we'll be talking about the heart center probably next week, I think.
Yeah.
And so we'll go into that a little bit deeper there. But coming back to just knowing that your G center, it's your soul, it's your purpose, it's what you're here to be, do, and have. And the ego is what sometimes stops us.
Yeah, so I actually have that channel. So that is the channel that defines my G center and my heart. So that's the channel of initiating. So that is why when I really tap, right, I am not a manifester. I have no manifester qualities. I am not here um to initiate, to bring new things about. But I've really been tapping into this energy. And I love that we're talking about this because when I tap into who I am and what my heart desires, right? What my heart really longs for, I can initiate. So I love transformational travels, right? Sometimes you want to be with people because you have that energy, but sometimes you want to seclude yourself and you might get bored and right, you don't really love that superficial conversation as a projector. Like that's also what I realized being with a Manny Jen. I was like, you were talking just to talk, and like there's no substance here. So I'm not going to use my energy to respond because my throat's already burned out from your motorized throat. Anyway, that's my experience. But
Love it.
I can initiate, right? When there is someone that I feel really connected to, that there is the recognition, there is an invitation, I can initiate something and say, hey, do you want to go do this? And that for me is not acting out of alignment, right? I'm not being a manifester. It is so in alignment. And my heart is saying, please do this. We long for this. We want this. This is part of who we are. This is our purpose. This is our direction. It's okay for me to get that started.
Yes. I love that you said that too, because I mean, oftentimes people stop learning about human design at their energy because they're like, oh, I'm a manifester. And I get a lot of manifestors who just think that basically that means that they can manifest all the time. It's like,
Right.
okay, we got to dig deeper than that. But I think what's really neat is that, like you said, a projector does not necessarily have any initiation within them, but there are certain channels and connections that allow us to do different things that maybe are just our surface level energy, authority, and strategy don't necessarily tell us. And so oftentimes people can feel limited by human design because they're like, but I really like doing this, and my chart's telling me not to do that. And that's where it's so helpful to have somebody who actually understands charts, knows how to dig deeper, ask you the right questions, and look at your chart and see what connections you have. Because then it's simply like, oh yeah, well, because of this channel, you do sometimes initiate when you're invited and when it feels like there's going to be this satisfaction and it's your heart's desire. That makes sense, of course, right? And so I think that's what's so neat about it's like a puzzle piece, right? So like your energy, your strategy, and your authority are kind of like those first like just couple pieces that grow the picture as you start diving into your defined and undefined centers and your channels and your gates and your profile. I mean, all the pieces, right? So,
Yeah. And that's why it's so helpful to have someone to put it together. And that's why I always ask when I'm doing readings is what is your goal, right? What is the focus? What are we looking at here? Because especially with my undefined throat, right? Like I can talk, like I can babble, I can fill this entire 30 minutes, 90 minutes just telling you about how amazing you are, how your design, works. But when you have that focus of who am I, what is my purpose? What is my direction? We can really put the pieces together of what is your energy type? What is that strategy? Also, what is your authority? How do you make aligned decisions? Then I really look at what we're talking about in these series are the energy centers, right? What centers do you have defined, undefined? But almost more importantly than that is what are your channels? Where and how does the energy flow? Because your channels, and we tend to not have too many channels, right? Reflectors have no channels. Some other types, generators, projectors, manifestors even, may only have one channel. For someone whose chart is lit up, I've seen as many as like six channels, and it's like, whoa, you have so much energy. So to really know your channel. So if you're looking to go a step deeper from what we're talking about here, you are self motivated, you feel lit up, your authority is like, yes, yes, yes. Look at your channels because they're really cool. Like I only have three channels, and when I really tap into the magic of them, sometimes it's like, duh, like you really need to do this. Here's your conditioning. This is what you need to do.
Yeah. And people, it's hard. Conditioning and getting rid of those limiting beliefs is hard. I'm doing a lot of just money manifestation work at the moment. This is kind of going away from the human design, but it's relevant because it's so easy to stay comfortable and not do anything to understand ourselves and to just be like, this is my life. But then you're just kind of giving up, right? And so when you can like when it feels hard, but then at the same time it's like, oh, but now I have an answer and now I have a way and a pathway and questions that I can answer to help me dig through those and shift those beliefs so that I can call in more clients, call in more money, call in more opportunities, call in raises. And this isn't just about the G center, but the G center is so important here because if you can tune in and discover, like, are you living your passion and purpose, or have you been distracted along the way because you really wanted to be a dancer, but mom and dad wanted you to be a lawyer, and so you're a lawyer, but feel this like hole or this gap in your energy. It's probably because you're not really aligned in your passion and where you want to be going and how you want to be presenting to the world. And so it's such a great way to sort of say, okay, what do I need to do now to shift that? Or how can I shift that?
Yeah, and human design is all about the gifts that you have and that you bring to the world. So I love Sophia's open-mindedness, open-hearted. Like, yes, that is so beautiful to be open-minded, especially Mistral and I are open-minded, right? We see out
Mm-hmm.
of the box, we see new things. To have an open heart, we'll talk about that next week because Mistral, your heart is completely open, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm open in that whole heart center chakra. And that's been probably some of my biggest challenges. So it's exciting for me to talk about these things because it just brings it more into my own awareness, right? And hopefully helping somebody else who's on this call going, like, I just feel like I don't have the direction, or I don't have the self-worth, or I don't have my purpose. Well, we're giving you tools and tips on what you can do to go and help support you to figure that out.
Right. And especially when it comes to the centers, Sophia's talking about well, what I see in what Sophia is saying is the keywords, right? To find balance. Intuition is the spleen center. Feeling like
Mm,
people are dramatic is a lot of times more of the solar plexus center.
mhm.
So when these keywords come in, it's really cool to see, okay, if you're looking for that, let's look and see how that energy is in your chart to either decondition, right? To really let it align and shine, or just to bring awareness to it to have. I mean, with the G Center, so many clients that I work with, when they understand their G Center, it is just like the light bulb goes off and it can be this more simplistic finding alignment because they understand how that works, and that balance can come just from understanding your own unique energy.
Yeah, yeah. And I did a post this morning. So if you're curious, if look at your chart, if you're curious to understand some of the gates, it's very basic. So you'd have to dive deeper to get more information or reach out in the DMs. But what's neat is you can really look at what gate is, and most likely you're just going to read what I wrote there and be like, oh my God, I do relate to that. Like my one hanging gate is gate 46. And this is all about mastery, right? Like completing my journey of rites of passage almost, right? Refining talents and skills over time and then achieving mastery with that. And that is so true of my whole life. I am an avid lifelong learner. I take on new projects all the time, like, and I want to master them and then kind of move on to the next thing almost. And so I think it's so neat when you can go and look at your gates and be like, oh, that resonates, and then just take that little bit farther.
Yeah. Yeah. And gate 46 is the love gate. I have that hanging too. So it's beautiful to see how they play into who you are. You know, my other two gates, I have gate 10 hanging. It is all about self-love, self-care. It is
Mm.
behavior of the self. It is my favorite gate. Well, I say that about my gates, but I really love gate 10. And if you have gate 10 and you're not practicing self-care, if I mean this is important for everyone, but especially if you have that gate 10, like you need to have a daily self-care practice where you are just loving on yourself because it is so important. And then I have gate 25. That's another love gate. It's all about the
Mm.
spirit of the self, about the soul, about acceptance, about universal love that plays into that initiation channel. So there's so much beauty. I see so many, and especially now with kind of where we're shifting into, gates 1 and 2, right? Gates 1 and 2 are both in the G center. Gate 1 about self-expression, that you are expressing yourself to find your direction. Like you're going. It connects up to the throat. Just put it out there and go. And then gate 2 about it's not so much about self expression because it's different, but it's about higher knowledge and being oriented to that direction of where you're going, that you're receptive of, does this align for me? Is this where I'm going? Like fork in the road. Do I take that detour? Do I take that fork? No, that's not for me. My higher self knows that that's not aligned. I'm going to stay on my path. It grounds you, it brings you down into the sacral. So all the gates are just really cool.
Listen to him like, gosh, he makes it sound so easy, you know? And that's what's great about having a coach because they do. They make it sound so easy. They break it down for you and help you understand like what you need to do so that when you're looking at it, you're going like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Right. And that's exactly why I created the Inner Work Intensive. It is a self study, it is 1 month. You get these videos that break it all down for you so you can easily look at these gates, right? I made it as kind of a deconditioning guide, especially for Manny Gens who are like, I want to do it all myself. I don't need a coach. I can do this. Well, here's your guide. It's Inner Work Intensive. You do get some support calls with me for questions, but it's really looking at, what do you have defined? What can you honor? What does this gate mean? What gates don't I have defined? Where am I holding on to that energy? What do I need to let go of? Again, especially when it comes to this center of direction and purpose and who you are.
Yep. Jen, I just looked at the time. It's 1:44. I
And
love that. 44 is like my favorite.
I love it. And we can just chat so long. Like, thank you
I
all
know.
who are here watching live, like your
Thank
engagement,
you.
your shares. We love it. We appreciate it. And I feel like when we have more engagement and more people here, we just have a
We
lot
talk
more
longer.
to say.
Yep. Yep. And that's okay. And it's my defined throat and your undefined throat coming together and being explosive. And that's what's so beautiful about this. This is the other part, you find your people, right? There's gates and channels in Jen and mine's chart that kind of complete each other, which allows us to have this really beautiful synergy to be able to show up live and have these really great conversations with you all about human design and about your different centers. And so we actually offer once a month a free human design like Q&A call. So please like drop below if you want to sign up for that. We'll send it out to you so you can get signed up. I don't have the date in front of me right now, but it's usually at the end of the month. And so it's going to be pretty awesome. So make sure
It's the 23rd.
the 23rd. Okay, awesome. We
Yep.
should do it at noon. So it's a great time just to come and get your questions answered, bring your chart. You have us, you'll have our attention for this time. So come and join us and we'll help you dive deeper and understand more about who you are.
Yes. And thank you, Sophia, for saying that. We love breaking it down so that it is easy to understand, that
Mhm.
you can learn all of this. And we didn't learn all of this, overnight. We've been
Mm-mm.
studying this for years. In human design, it takes 7 years to decondition. So this is not something to like rush into. If
No.
it feels aligned and you're feeling called to this, let your G center guide you to human design and all of this. And, when it comes to business, like if you want to align with your business and do the right marketing, like Mistral is your go-to person. So then, yeah, we'll be back next Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern to talk about the heart center, the ego center. So join us then and let us know all your questions.
Sounds awesome. I can't wait to chat with you soon, Jen.
Yeah, you too, Mistral. Bye,
Thanks for joining
everyone.
us,
Thanks
everyone.
again.
Bye.